In last lecture, we initialized Node.js environment, we get familiar with terminal commands, and we created our first Node.js application. In this lecture, I'll continue, and I will be talking about a concept called variables. Alright, so let's start. Open your terminals and also open your coding editors and a program or application we wrote in last lecture, which is very simple. We are just using here a console log, and we are consoling log out hello world. We'll be talking about the syntax, what does it mean console and .log later, but what I can tell you now, console is just an object and a log is a function, and we are executing this function where we are providing a string hello world which is getting output to our terminals. But about this later, we'll be talking about the objects and the functions in the later sections. What we can do now, I will just make here more lines and I will write here a comment. Okay, so this will be not process but by Node.js. So you can write here a comment, and let's say this will be comment, we'll be talking about variables. Okay, so variables. Variables is very important concept in programming. In variables, you can store values, and you can reuse these values later while your program, your application is running. So the same as in mathematics or in physics, when you are working on some computation, you are storing your subcomputation or your sub results into variables you can use later, because you cannot memorize everything. Okay, so the same we have in programming, we have variables. And in a JavaScript, we can define a variable by writing keyword var, which is a shortcut for a variable, or we can use a let, all right, or we can use const. In this lecture, I will introduce you just a let and a const. Later, we'll be talking about a var, and var will be not using at all. Okay, so let's define some variables. So as I told you, in variables we can store some values. What the values types we have in a JavaScript? In a JavaScript we have a boolean, null, undefined, number, integer, string, and symbols. Okay, we'll start with the simple ones. Let's create here variables. So as I told you, we need to use a special keyword called let or a const, space, and the name of your variable. So let's say we'll call our variable, let's say we'll be working with a person. So I will call my variable is employed. So is employed. All right, and I can store here value. We will start with a boolean value, and a boolean value can hold a true or a false value. So let's say we are talking about some person. Let's say we are talking about ourselves. Are we employed? Yes, I will say here true. And as I told you, we can hold here a true or a false. And also in a programming, usually you are writing when you are ending your line, when you are ending your expression, semicolon in the end. All right? All right, let's write here a new line, and we can create here a new variable. So let's say, if I'll create here let, I will call it, this variable, let's say, has apartment. And you can see that I like to prefix my Boolean variables with a is or a has. So it's easier to understand what we are writing, because of course, when you're writing your code, you should pretty understand what you are writing. Okay, so let's write here has apartment, and it will be, let's say, false. We are ending this expression, so we'll write here semicolon like this. Perfect. Okay, let's specify here variables that will hold a name of us. Okay, so let's write here let, and I will get here first name. Now we want to write here a string. Strings are text values, and when you want to write a string, you need to wrap string instead of a quotes. You can use either double quotes or you can use a single quotes, depends on your preferences, and we will be using a single quotes. Okay, so let first name, my name is Philip. Semicolon here, let's write here last name. So let last name, and it will be my last name. All right, semicolon in the end. Let's specify here age. So let age, and let's say age will be 29. Semicolon here. Perfect. Okay, so what we have here Boolean value. I will specify here this is a Boolean value, false as well. Boolean can be true or false. True is a for truthy value, false is a for a falsy value. Okay, we have here strings, all right, so this is a string value. Then we have here number values, okay, so we have here number values. All right, so then we can specify here also undefined values. Okay, so I will define here just a let, and let's say this will be, let's say birthday. Okay, so birthday, and I'll write here just a semicolon, so I'm not assigning here any value, just a birthday. All right, perfect. So then we have here also undefined. So this will be undefined because I am not specifying here any value. Undefined. All right, and then we have also nulls. So let's write here let. All right, and I will say here, let's say address or a phone, up to you, like how you want to call your variable, and we can assign here a null. So there is no value in a phone. It's a basically null value, and basically value represents a reference that points generally to non-existent or invalid object or address. For example, for now you can just remember here that we are just assigning a null value which has no representative value for us. Maybe in a time when we are writing this variable, we don't know what value we would like to assign here, and we would like to do it later. So we are for now assigning here a null value. So we know there is no value stored in a phone. Okay, so for now we have here just a null value. All right, so as I told you, as in computation, we are storing our values into variables, and we can use them later in our code. Okay, so I have here a bunch of the variables, what I can do with them. For now, we know there's a console log here. With the console log, we can output these informations inside of our terminals. So for now, I would like to input to our terminals only my first name, last name, and an age. And then the second console log, I would like to input the birthday and the second name of my phone. Okay, so I'll write here 3 console logs. So console log. What we want to input here, as you could see here, we outputted here hello world, which is a raw string not stored into any variable. But when you want to create a reusable functionality, you are storing into variables your values. Then you can use them also in a console logs anywhere where you want. So let's console log here first name. When you want to join together multiple strings, you cannot just actually you can write here a comma, and then you can write your last name. Then you can write here a comma, and then you can get here age. All right, let's see what will happen now. Let's save this. Now let's run your program. So let's go to terminal, and let's run here node app.js. Now you can see here Philip Yerga and 29. Okay, so we outputted our information. What if I want to input here more lines, or not more lines, but I would like to input here, output here some custom strings. So let's say here, I'll write here a string name colon, and now I would like to add to this name colon and a space my first name. So when you want to join 2 strings together, you can just write here plus first name. So it will be name colon space plus first name. So whatever variable, whatever value the first name variable is holding. So our first name variable holds a Philip. So it will be name space Philip. Now plus, let's add here another space. I told you we will be using single quotes. I will change it for a single quote. So name colon space Philip space, now plus last name. Let's remove this comma, plus quotes space comma age colon space, like this. And also let's change this double quotes for a single quote. Okay, so let's take a look on this line one more time. So this will output us a name space Philip plus space Yerga and space comma age, and age will be, don't forget here, plus, and the age is 29. Okay, let's save this. Let's go to our terminals and let's run our code once again, and you can see here name Philip Yerga and the age is 29. Perfect. So we just run our code, we outputted these informations. And now we can reuse these variables as we want. So now we can just make here a second console log. I can use here my first name again, and so on. And pretty much I can use it in some other computations. So now you can see here a difference between using variables and raw values, because when I will write a console log hello world, this value is here. This will console log out this value, but I cannot reuse it later. With the first name, I can use it in the second console log, third console log. I can maybe join some my first name with some other string, and so on. So the variables holding these values are stored in a physical memory of your computers while your program is running. Okay, this is very important. When we are creating variables, this is stored in a memory of your computer. All right, but as I told you, we want to console log here more information. So I'll write here console log. Okay, so second console log, and we want to input here our, let's say this will be birthday. All right, so birthday here, semicolon here, console log, third console log, and here will be phone. Perfect, semicolon here. Let's save this and let's run this. So let's go to our terminals. Let's write here node app.js. Let's press this, and you can see here name Filip Bierga, age 29, undefined. This for our undefined value, and then we have here null value. So you can see here undefined is because our birthday is undefined. We are not storing any value here. Phone is null because we assigned a null value to our phone, and that's what we are displaying. Okay, now guys, so I think that should be enough for this lecture. It's getting too long. These explanations of the basics are always very long, but as I told you in this lecture, we are working with the variables. In the variables, we can store the values, we can reuse in our program later, we can store their subcomputations, sub-results, we can use later, we can store their booleans, which is holds a true or a false value, we can store their strings, okay, for a text values, we can also write their numbers, but this will be treated as a text value, everything. Then we have a numbers to store the number value, as for example age. Then we have undefined values. When you will not assign any value, this variable will hold undefined. And then we have a null values. This is a very short introduction. In more details and more about the variables, we'll be talking in the next lecture. Alright guys, so that should be it for this lecture. Your program should look like this. You should see three console logs, and in next lecture we'll continue, and we'll be also debugging our code. So guys, that should be it, and I hope to see you in the next lecture. Cheers guys.